Gentlemen, welcome to the workbench. My name is Tiger Shark Bass, also known as Sprue Goose on Instagram, Sprue_Goose. And you haven't seen any movies from me before. That's because I haven't made any. This is the first one. So I thought I'd do something different. Plenty of build videos out there, plenty of discussions of techniques and stuff like that. So I thought I'd do something different. I want to do something that I call the 6-hour challenge, and I'm hoping to throw this out to a few fellow scale modelers on Reddit and on Instagram, see what they can come up with. But what I'm trying to do is I'm going to build something in 6 hours and see how far I get. This is what I've chosen: Hasegawa 172 F16 Falcon, and I want to build it using these decals from 2Bobs for the Mountain Home gunfighters. These guys are some of the first units in Afghanistan after 9/11. And because these guys, it says in the instruction sheet, these guys used to carry cluster bombs and on triple ejector racks, I'm going to have to use a little bit of aftermarket stuff. I'm going to use a triple ejector rack from Hasegawa Weapon Set Smart Bombs and some CBU 87s from set number 1, missiles and launchers. So I'm going to see how far I get in 6 hours. I'm sort of, I tell people every time they ask how much effort goes into a model, I guesstimate around 40 hours, but I don't really know. And I've always said to myself, hey, I want to write down, what part of the process takes the amount of time that it does. But I always forget. So I thought, why not just make a video and sort of, keep the time window tight, 6 hours, and see what I can achieve. I chose this kit because, for 2 reasons. One, it's really quite an easy kit to assemble. Great for beginners, by the way, if you want to learn how to model in a modern jet. It's probably one of the best ones that you can build, the easiest ones. Also, the paint job is relatively simple. I didn't want to choose something with complicated camo that would require lots of masking or anything like that. I wanted to choose a jet that was relatively easy to paint, so I could do that in 6 hours. Because I think when it comes to building these things, the build of a model is actually could happen very quickly, especially if you're just going to put it together without painting. The real time sink, in my opinion, for models is the painting process to get it right, and of course the weathering process. Now this 6-hour challenge isn't going to include the weathering. I just want to build it, paint it, decal it, and yes, I'm going to call it decals. If you call them decals, well, good for you, but decal seems like some sort of mysterious 18th century disease that you've contracted in my book. I've got the decals, so I'm going to call them decals. I'm going to decal it as well, but not weathering. So we'll sort of assess the results at the end of the 6 hours, see what we come up with, but no weathering, except from the basic stuff like pre-shading or things like that. So what are you going to need? Well, I just want to walk through some of the materials that I'm going to use on this build. First of all, you need all your various paints. Lots of grays on the F16. So it's 305, 306, 307, 308 according to the Hasegawa sheets, but they've got the FS numbers on the outside. Going to need a decent primer. Now, Vallejo likes to say that these acrylic primers are something that you can use. They are formulated a little bit different than the normal paints. They're okay. I sometimes use them, but really nothing beats this big bad boy, the Tamiya primer. It comes in a rattle can, and when you spray it on, it dries fairly quickly, like within, I think you could paint within 30 minutes, I would think, if you lay the coats on thin enough. And it really, eats into the plastic to give you a nice surface to paint on. Excellent product. So you're going to need some primer. You're going to need all your various paints. Black. You're going to need some white. I don't think we're going to need some white. I don't know why the white is there. You're going to need some black, olive drab for the seat, silver for doing various pitot tubes and bits and pieces, and also painting the lights. And for the decals, you're going to need some micro set. As you put the decal on, you put this on and put the decal over it, and then micro sol, which will dissolve it and make it really conform to the surface. after it's dried a little bit and you've got them all put in place. Getting some tweezers, some cutters to cut the sprue, a good quality hobby knife. This is an Alpha. I had this for years. The cutters are by U-Star, pretty good. Tweezers are by Excel, I think, yes. Excel. I have a AK Interactive. You're going to need a small little brush for painting all the fine details like pitot tubes and things like that. And you're going to need some masking tape. I use pretty much all Tamiya masking tape. I've got some large type stuff and more thinner one there. And this is conforming masking tape. It allows you to really bend and curve, make curves and things like that. And we might end up using that for the curve on the front of the Falcon there, or you might just use a piece of paper. I'm not sure yet, but yeah. So because painting is going to take the... Oh, sorry, you're going to need some glues too. I've got the glues back here. So one thing you're going to need is you're going to need some... I use almost thin glue quite a lot, but sometimes for the big chunks, the things like wings and stuff like that have large surface areas, I will either use this Contact Professional or this Tamiya cement as well, the thicker type. It takes a bit longer to dry, but gives a nice strong bond. So yeah, your glues as well. And also some clamps to clamp wings and things should you need to. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using these, but I have them out anyway. And now I have a special clock. This clock, when I get started, at the moment it's 10:15. I think I'm going to get started. I got a date here, 5:29. I think I'm going to get started around midday and then see how far I can get until 6 p.m. I think that's it. 6-hour challenge. I think in the next part we'll get started with cutting things off the sprue, and because painting is the thing that's going to take the most time, it's probably important to sort of really efficiently plan out how we're going to attack this. So obviously it all starts with the cockpit. So the cockpit's going to be an easy one. I think it's pretty straightforward cockpit. And then the next part will be to get the fuselage assembled, and then getting the canopy on top of the fuselage, painting it black, and then getting the canopy. Once the canopy's on there, then we can actually start assembling all the other pieces, and we can spray them all in one go. And because there's a lot of white, oh yeah, we will need the white. The white's for all the gear and the gear wells, the landing gear wells. Because painting is going to be the most time-consuming thing, it'd be great if we can try and paint all the pieces in one hit as we move along. So for example, as we start painting white, let's make sure we get all the landing gear, all the wells, if we paint 308, which we're going to be painting on the bottom of the jet, let's make sure we get the tanks and the hard points, all those things sprayed at the same time. So it'll be good to sort of lay all our pieces out on like a piece of cardboard or something like that, using masking tape, something like this. And we can label the pieces by their sprue names as well. And that way you can spray them all in one go, and it's probably going to save us quite a bit of time, especially, to save us like going back and as we build painting. Now, because we're using Tamiya thin cement, it works really well with painted parts. Normally in the past, when you're using thick cement, you'd have to do a quick balance of what you wanted to paint on the plane and what you wanted to paint off the plane and stick it on. With Tamiya thin cement, a lot of the painted pieces you can just attach to the plane and then just touch it with thin cement, and it doesn't dissolve the paint too much. It actually does a really good job of making parts stick. Yeah, that's going to be the 6-hour challenge. Let's see how far we get with this. And like I said, I hope this becomes a thing. I hope some of the scale modelers in the community will be able to take up the challenge and see what they can do. And I'm hoping people can use various amounts of various skills, scales, scale kits, and all that sort of thing. I just want to see what people can come up with in 6 hours. It'll also be an interesting experiment to see exactly how far I get, and maybe re-establish what I think is a realistic time frame for making models, because I've always thought it's about 40 hours. That still might be correct, but let's see how far we get in 6. Alright, When I come back, we'll start cutting stuff off the sprue. Alright, let's get started. Hasegawa 172 Falcon. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to start cutting everything off the sprue. Get to that cockpit, because the cockpit is the first thing we want to build. And when we do the cockpit, then the next step will be to mask the canopy, because we want to put the canopy on the fuselage. And once the canopy is on the fuselage, then we can start painting the fuselage and really get going with making the model. So I've already identified the canopy. You need to cut out the canopy, the seat. We're not going to do the pilot for this one. The canopy, the seat, and the little control stick on the side, which the instructions also tell you to put in. Whoops, let's just move the camera up a bit so we can see the instructions at the same time. A little control stick on the side, and the front console there. Paint that 308. I'm not going to put too much effort into the seat. I'm just going to paint it olive drab. I think I might replace it with a aftermarket seat a little bit later, because unfortunately the seat on this model is not particularly modeled all that well. Pretty basic, but we'll paint it just for the purposes of the challenge. So we'll take out the seat and the console and all that other stuff. There's the seat, and then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to in the next couple of minutes take off all the pieces I can, put them onto a piece of board that's going to have masking tape on it, write down the part numbers, and start to put this all together. So my next step will be painting the cockpit and masking the canopy, and I'll check back in once I've done that. The one thing I forgot to do is note the time, 12:37. That's when we start, so I've got till 6:30, I guess, 6-hour challenge to get what I need to get done. So let's see how it turns out. Okay, 12:43. I've assembled the cockpit tub, put the little stick in there. We're going to paint 308 on all these pieces now. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so over here, don't usually prime the cockpit. I'm going to use some Vallejo 308 or FS 36375. I'm going to put a tiny bit of thinner in there in the airbrush first, and then put the Vallejo in, and yeah, tiny bit of thinner. We don't need much because we're not going to be spraying a lot of 308. Then I'm going to use the hairdryer to speed all this whole thing up. I'm going to use the hairdryer to basically thin the paint, cure the paint so that we can decal over it, because that'll be the next step. Use a bit of a paintbrush here, stir it up. Okay, so let's get a spray, a kind of spray booth over here. It's important when you spray Vallejo that you give a bit of a layer first, thin layer on the part, in order to help it stick, and then later, after it's stuck, you can start to spray a bit heavier. So I'm just putting a thin layer over the top first, kind of give the paint something to adhere to. And we're going to do the seat as well. See if there's something we can grab onto the seat, maybe the bottom. Oops, there goes another airbrush. You can see this is very professional movie we're doing. Okay, so that's that. So now we're going to start spraying a bit more liberally. Make that 308 color come through. I'm using a 0.5mm airbrush here, lots and lots of coverage. Getting that 308 on. Cockpit tub, you want to make sure you get all the little corners and crevices there. And then we're going to paint the control stick black, and we're going to add the decals to this. At this point in time, because there's a bit of 308, normally I would spray the fuselage on the inside too, because there's a bit of 308 that needs to go on the walls of the cockpit there. But I'm going to save that till after I do the black. But we'll just do some now, just in case. The secret is, the problem is masking it off when you do the back, the black on top of the fuselage here. It's but we might as well do some 308 now and see what happens. So that's it for the cockpit, it looks like. Now I just need to take it to the hairdryer and cure this stuff so we can start decaling it. There's the seat. You can see the seat's pretty basic. I'm not sure if you can see that so well, and the seat's pretty basic. So you get the camera to focus. Focus, camera, focus. Yeah, it's not going to do it. But okay. So next step, I will start decaling this and painting some details on the seat. And the seat can actually wait because I'm not going to close it up. I'm going to show this with a canopy open. Yeah, after that, I think we're ready to assemble the fuselage and paint the black on the top. And we also, it's important to do the canopy next. We're going to mask the canopy next because you want to do the canopy a black too, because the inside of the canopy is black. So I want to be able to spray this black on the fuselage, then spray black over the canopy to do the inside color of the canopy, and then I'm going to assemble the whole thing and prime it using the Tamiya primer. So I'll check back in. What's the time now? 12:48. I'll check back in once that's all done. Okay, I've run the stuff through the hairdryer. What are we? 12:55. It's looking pretty good. Now for decaling, or decaling. Yeah, now I'm saying decaling. You got me doing it, internet. I use these excellent Tamiya decal scissors, tweezers. They have nice flat tips on them, great for maneuvering stuff. And I use these because I'm old. I use these magnifying glasses to help me when I do this, especially in 1/72 scale. Decals are just here, you can see. I've cut them out from the decal sheet, ready to go on the cockpit. Just use an old paintbrush, take a bit of microset, dab it on where I'm going to place it. I think I'll do the front, up front controller and front consoles first. So just put a bit of microset on there. You can be generous with it, it's okay. I'm going to take the decals off the sheet, sliding nicely. I'm just going to take it off and gently put it in here. It's got a bit of film in there. It's going to make it difficult to fit, and I should have cut it off on the sheet. It's got a bit of film in there that's making it difficult to conform around the boxy part. I'm just using my knife to cut it away. That's it. Now we should fit it on. Not too much drama. The microset should pull it down onto the surface, giving you a bit of, and there's going to be some film that's going to be sitting over the edges of it. Yeah, at this scale things get pretty tricky, so I've got that down now. Next thing is to put the up front controller thing on it. Little box in the middle. And I wet these all at the same time, and they're just sitting here waiting for me to slide them off and put them on. Yeah, Microset's grabbed it there. I'm going to dab these down with a cotton bud in a second. And now we move to the cockpit. Bit of Microset. Take the decal, and this decal is going to sort of conforms up the wall as well, so it's got a bit of a bend to it. The Microset makes it easy to slide it around. Just make sure it's sort of up against the wall there. And the second part, the Microset. Actually, it might be better to get off the clip. And this one goes between the... Excellent. Let me just set one little piece just to go right on there, on the console piece. This one's going to be a bit tricky. It's going to go between the joystick and the control stick. Alright, so I can either wait these to dry. I'm going to probably poke them down with some cotton bud to flatten them, and then put some microsol of them. But basically that's the cockpit done. I just need to paint now the control stick black, and we're ready to sort of stick it in. The seat I'm going to leave till last, and we'll just leave it there and we'll paint it as if we have some free time at the beginning. At this point I really want to focus on getting that fuselage assembled, and then start the hardcore painting to get it all done. We'll check in a little bit later. So we're just about ready to spray some black now. So we're going to... I've cut off the pieces of the fuselage. I've glued the inside here. These are parts B5, B6. I glued them in because we're going to be painting them white anyway. There's no reason to not glue them in. We can paint them white later as we paint the whole wheel well. I've glued in the cockpit. It's ready to go. So we're going to now squirt the top of the fuselage here, which is black. We're going to put on the HUD. And then you can see I've masked off the canopy pieces now. We're going to glue the canopy, well, at least the rear section. The rear section, which is here. And the front section, we'll just glue with just a little tiny bit of white glue just to keep it there while we're spraying it with the airbrush. And we're going to spray that black. I'm going to put it on top and spray it black. Now you can see here on this canopy I've used the Tamiya conforming tape. Really, really good for these kinds of things, especially the 16, because you can allow it to sort of move around curves. So I've done the curve of the top of the windscreen there, and the curve of at the front of the windscreen. Nice sort of curve, and the rest I've just taped up to keep it, keep it from getting paint on it. So this conforming tape is really good for doing the edges, and then you can just fill in the rest with either, you can also use that silicone masking fluid as well. I just use tape because I don't want to wait for the masking fluid to dry. So I'm going to put it on and then spray black, and then assemble the fuselage, get it ready for priming, assemble the wings, things like that, and we'll see where we go from there. So first step will be to spray this black. You can also see I've masked off of the 308 on the inside, the paint that we done on the inside before. Just mask that off when we spray it black. We also have to spray inside the hood there because the bottom of the hood is black. So yeah, let's see how we go with that, and I'll check in. Time is 1:48. Okay, it turns out that, so I've glued in the rear part of the canopy. It turns out the front part is actually quite a snug fit. So I put the HUD in there, sprayed the underside so that the hood is black. it looks like I can now spray this black and then assemble the fuselage ready for priming. Yeah, so it turns out this is quite a snug fit. Don't need to use any clear glue to keep it there. I think it's going to be fine. So now I'm going to spray this part black, assemble the fuselage, and then start putting on wings and things like that to prime it. And then we start doing the whites and the actual main body color. Time is 2:02, so what are we, 1.5 hours in, and a bit fiddly, but now I think it gets easier after we start to assemble everything, and we've got one big piece that we can start beginning to paint. It's always the cockpit and the canopy that's the fiddly part. After that, the next fiddly part I anticipate is the engine. Getting engines looking good, getting engines looking realistic, can be quite difficult. I'm not sure if we're going to get to that in 6 hours. We'll find out. But here we go. Get ready to lay down some black on this, and then we're done with the black and start to do priming and greys. Oh, we'll have to do a bit of pre-shading probably after we do the primer. But yeah, we'll get to that in a second. All right, I'll check in soon. Okay, at this point, I made a bit of progress, but it's going a lot slower than I thought it would. You want to be careful to try and... I do want to make a good model, even though it's sort of an accelerated process. I've managed to put the wings on, the tail pieces on, the fins on the bottom also have been placed as well, added wheel well pieces and the top piece here. Part of the instructions, interestingly, the instructions don't tell you that if you want to do a centerline tank, you're going to have to drill out some holes here. I saw the little places for the holes, but the instructions don't mention it, so something you watch out for. And at this point, basically, we're going to be, we want to squirt white, I guess. We want to paint white, and just trying to sort out these tail fins so that they look roughly the same. I don't know why they shifted position. That's the beauty of using Tamiya cement. You can sort of manipulate it a little bit before it entirely dries. Okay, so this is basically ready to be primed, right? I've also put together the tail piece, and I'll glue on the vertical tail in a second. But this, I'm sort of cutting into the video now because, or into the process now, because it's this step number 3. This is always the trickiest part of building an F-16. The air intake there, which is this little piece here, right? It's painted white on the inside, but the outside is going to be painted the color of the jet. So before you start to assemble this whole sub-assembly, you really need to paint that piece white, really get in there, and then you want to add the little black vertical separator that goes in there, and then assemble the piece, and then stick it onto the body, mask it off, stick it onto the body, and then you can sort of confidently paint the rest of the plane without getting any color into the intake and ruining the white there. What I've done is I've taken all the pieces that are going to be painted white, put them on some masking tape on a board, labeled pieces that I think are important in terms of order of the landing gear, just so I know what pieces they are. Some of them are obvious, the front, and wheels you don't need to worry about. But the idea is I'm going to try and shoot white all over this at one hit, everything that needs to be white, and then the next color will be grays. Also the engine, the inside is kind of a white color that's been dirtied up. There's ceramic inside, like panels or something on the inside of the engine. This doesn't have enough detail inside to really warrant that, so I'm just going to shoot jet exhaust black in the inside and then paint the outside of this. But we're very close to sort of getting the whole thing ready for priming. After priming will take 30 minutes or so. But in the meantime, I'm just going to shoot white on this. Also shoot white on the wheel well here, which is going to be a bit tricky because we're going to have to mask it off when we do the other color. We'll see what happens. We might need to have to come back and shoot white on this again after we do the gray. Yeah, let's get going shooting white on this and see what happens. White, of course, is the trickiest color. To anything like a white and a yellow or a red, always tricky. So again, tedious to sort of
give them a little bit of a spray first, give them a covering so that their paint's got something to adhere to, and then once you've got that cover, you can slowly build up the white colour. And build it up slowly in layers, otherwise the white just doesn't stick. So sometimes, even though the instructions tell you to do it in a particular order, you kind of have to think about how the paint is going to be laid down. So in the case of that air intake, it makes more sense to paint it first before painting the body color later on. It's also tricky painting, airbrushing inside hollow areas like this. Just slowly building over layers over this. Coming up the landing gear from the side as well. Some of these pieces I'm going to have to turn over, like the wheels. Paint them again. Just nice light coats. Slowly the white builds up. Whoops, piece just flew away. Slowly the white builds up, and then you're all good. Working in a bit of a cramped space here. I don't have a dedicated space for building my stuff, by the way. This is just all done in the laundry. So, those people that have dedicated spaces, well, good. But you don't need a dedicated space to get good results. As long as you have space for an airbrush. I mean, airbrush is really where you're going to get your good result from. I've seen people do it well with brushes, but not that the airbrush is what gives you that superior quality. Okay, so let's do the wheelbars here too. So white, such a tricky color. Really important that you put it down nice and light, and then go for it. It's also tricky when you're painting on grey to see what the paint is actually laying down. Good news is in wheel wells and things like that, it doesn't need to be perfectly white because chances are you're going to be dirtying it up anyway. So once you get enough white in there to give the appearance of white, you're good. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to take this off to the hairdryer to cure it, and then I got to do some of the other pieces on the flip side, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like after I've primed it. Right, so I'm going to have to prime it and wait for 30 seconds. Also have to assemble this this piece, this sub-assembly that's going to go on the bottom of the jet, and then it's time for priming. We'll have to wait 30 minutes for the primer to sort of dry and get ready, and then we're time to lay down some base colors on the jet. check in soon. Oh, time is 3:20. So I've been at it for what, almost 3 hours now. Not sure if I'm going to get it done, but let's see. So at this stage, I've made the sub-assembly here. I'm going to mask it off. Just losing a bit of light here, aren't we? Made the sub-assembly and going to mask it off. I have the vertical fin on, and we're almost ready for priming. I know I said that before. I'm not looking optimistic. I got 2 hours to go. I think I'll just get through the painting. Don't think I'll get to decaling. Maybe the major pieces, but not the small little nose steps and everything that go around, all the other little markings. We'll see. Problem with getting this time of night, of course. What time is it now? 4:09. You know, around 5:30, 6. It'll be time to get ready for dinner for the family. So that's going to make it difficult to find the time to work on this. I also lost about half an hour picking up my son from school. So not looking good. Everything is white now. I am probably going to shoot some Vallejo jet exhaust onto the jet engine next, while I prime this and wait for it to dry. And just in case people wanted to know what white I was using Insignia white from Vallejo. You can't see that, I don't think, because the screen looks pretty dark, but that's what it was. Getting closer. I'm feeling good about it, but I'm just not feeling that I'm going to finish anything. I mean, I think the build has gone quite well. It's going to require minimal sanding, I think, just around the nose area here, where the join was between the two halves and the nose, and probably around this sub-assembly, around the bottom. Very well made kit, these. So they go together really quite well. You just take your time. And you should go together without any sandpapering or gap filling or anything like that. The wings on went very nicely, and no gaps or requirements for filler there. So it's all going quite well. Maybe over here you can see that a bit better. So when I get to priming, this one I'll start to feel better. But as I said, I think we'll just get through the painting. I'm not sure if I might have to admit defeat when it comes to the decaling and. Just call it a day painting, and see if anybody else can do better on the 6-hour challenge. But let's see. So it's 4:54, 1 hour to go, and 1.5 hours, I guess. I've just finished priming the F-16, using the Tamiya primer. I had to fix up some seam lines running along there, and I've primed it again after sanding to see if the seam line is going to go away. You can see I've masked here also the intake. Fortunately, the wheel wells, yeah, I should have painted them white afterwards. They're too difficult to mask, and it's better to mask the outside and paint white when the final color is down. So that was a bit of a shame. Wasted time and effort there. But otherwise, it's primed. The jet itself. Engine has been painted with jet exhaust, which is good. And I also took the opportunity of priming a few things in anticipation. So while they were still on the sprue, I primed the drop tank, a few of the hard points, and the missiles and things like that. Primed them in anticipation of cutting them off and painting them. At the same time, I paint the bottom of the plane. I think the next step after the primer is cured, it's probably another 30 minutes, I guess, I can start painting, would be to paint the bottom color, which is 308. 308. I've lost all my paints where I put them. Oh, here we go. So 308 is going to be the bottom color of the jet. 308s are FS 36375. So I'll paint that light color first, then it'll be 306, so the bottom color is 308, and then I'll do 306, which is the light color for the tail fin and the front section here. Then finally the 305. But 308 is the next big one, and that one is not just the bottom of the jet, but it's also the hard points on the wing, the insides of the fins. Yeah. So, to be honest, I really don't think I'm going to get beyond painting the thing. I'm going to get nowhere near decals. Now, the important thing to realize is that I could have rushed through this, right? But I wanted to build a model of the same quality that I normally build, so I just wanted to see, I guess, what could be achieved in 6 hours. Now I'm starting to understand that you could probably, paint a jet and get it ready for decaling, but finishing even a 172 jet, but it doesn't have that many pieces. Finishing it all in 6 hours is a bit ambitious, unless if you're an extremely experienced modeler and you can put together fuselages and things like that without any kind of sanding or putty or anything like that, then maybe it's achievable. But I had to go back and do a bit of touch up a few bits and pieces in order to make it look nice. But this primer is really nice. This Tamiya primer is really awesome. It's awesome because it shows you where all your seams are after you put it together, and then once it's dry you can sand it, which I can't say. I've seen a lot of people complain about surface primers from Vallejo, and they're absolutely right. While they might prepare the surface for paint, they're not great for filling in small little gaps or little holes, and they're also not good for sanding. When you're sanding, the whole thing just seems to fall apart. The Tamiya primer really does sand. It starts to get into a fine grain powder as you sand it, and really does quite well with that. Plus it gives this nice, really rough, grippy surface. You can probably hear as I rub my finger over it, it's really quite rough, and that really gives the paint something nice to grip onto. To be honest, in 6 hours, a little disappointing. I thought I actually would get to decaling, but in 6 hours I think I'm going to probably complete the paint job, and maybe get the gear on, but the decaling probably will not start until, I'm thinking it's probably another 4 hours in it, so I think probably 10 hours is the mark for a model of this complexity and size. Anyway, there we go. I'll check in an hour's time, I guess, when we hit the 6 o'clock mark. I think I started at 12:30, so I've got till 6:30. I'll probably start painting in the next 30 minutes, the first base color, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Hope you're enjoying it so far. Welcome back. So, there's still a noticeable seam line here on where the two halves met. Now, I was hoping, if I was to follow these instructions that come with the kit, the Hasegawa kit, there's actually a line of demarcation between a darker grey and a lighter grey that runs across. Oops, sorry, I'm going to show it here. There's a line of demarcation that runs across here. Basically, where the fuselage meets, and what you can do, a little trick, even though there's a small little gap there, when you paint, as long as you paint along that line, you can actually kind of hide the fact that there's some gap there, or a little. It's not really a gap, it's like half filled, but when I moved to the 2Bobs decal sheet to tell me how to paint, it appears like there is only two colors on these jets at the time in Afghanistan. Just the light gray and the darker 305. That's it. There's no other variations of colors like listed in this sheet as well. And this sheet you've got 306 here, 306 in the front, and you've got 308 on the bottom, and then the little radomes and things, they're colored 307. You got a different color radome color here. So the fins here are 306, but the body here is 308. So there's a lot of kind of variations in the gray. But if I'm to follow the two bobs sheet, there's basically only two colors, 306 and 305. The whole bottom is 306. And all the sides and everything are 306. This camera is not focusing. There we go. So it means that I can't do the little trick to hide the seam along the side. So at this point, it's going to require a bit of work to sand it, to fill in the little gap, and to sand it. Let's see, I don't know if you can get the seam there, but it is noticeable. It's noticeable to me anyway. So I could pursue and go ahead and build this and live with that seam, or I can try and spend a little bit more time and fix it up. So I think at this point, I sort of concede defeat. What time is it now? 5:20. Also, going at this at 6 hours can be a bit rough as well. And I'm starting to lose my motivation to continue to do this. So there you have it. I concede defeat. Basically, we have a primed plane ready for painting, an engine ready for painting, and painted gear bits and pieces. Still need to paint the tires on the gear. The gear doors here are white on the other side, and they're primed, ready for the underneath base color. No weapons have been done. So it's tough. I think the learning here, 6 hour challenge, it's tough to build something in 6 hours if you wanna do it of a decent quality, right? I took some time assembling the fuselage just to make sure that there was as minimal sanding as I need to, and that all the pieces are fitting very nicely. It is looking quite nice with the primer on it. It's looking great. The build looks great, except for this seam line here. And I'm going to have to use some putty, and then I'm going to have to sand it, and I'm going to lose some of the panel lines, which I'm going to have to rescribe. And yeah, this is always a tricky part on the 16s. Even at 1/48 scale, you always have this problem with the two fuselage meets and the two halves meet, and there's always kind of a line there. So there you have it, 6 hour challenge. I got to a primed plane. I'm going to throw this out to some other people on Instagram or Reddit, and see if they're up for the challenge and see what they can come up with in 6 hours. The frustrating thing is this is actually a really simple plane to build too. I mean, I can't imagine if it was an 18 or any other modern jet, it would take quite a bit of effort. These seem to go together really, really well, except for that seam on the nose. So, I mean, I hate to think if this was something a bit more complicated, the 6 hour challenge would be really difficult. But I'm interested to see what other people come up with. So there you go. This is Tiger Shark Bass, or Sprue Goose on Instagram, signing off. I hope you've enjoyed at least seeing a little bit of the process. Maybe in the future I'll make more videos actually detailing some of the individual assemblies I do and some of the techniques I use. But for the time being, I thought I'd kick my channel off with this 6 hour challenge, and let's see if it becomes a thing. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to me on Instagram, or subscribe to this channel if you would like to see some more videos. And we'll see you next time.